Hello, everybody. Welcome into GSMC's Down by Contact Sports Podcast. I'm your host, Jeremy Lapidus. Today is Wednesday, January 15th. I hope everybody is having a great day so far. We have a lot to get through today. We're going to start off our show today in the NFL, covering the power rankings of the top 8 teams remaining in the NFL. Then we'll take a look at the coaching carousel again. There are still 6 spots left. We're going to try to go Nostradamus and predict every single one. Then I got a question that kind of popped up a little bit yesterday. Is Jaden Daniels a top 5 quarterback in the NFL? We'll go through that before discussing a little bit in the world of baseball and in college football. But before we get into any of that, remember, if you would like to be an even bigger part of the show than you already are, all you need to do is go to GSMCpodcast.net. Or if you are on YouTube, you can use that super chat feature. If you do either of those two things, a message should pop up on the bottom of the screen for you, me, and everybody else around the world to see. If you do have a burning question about sports, anything at all that you would like to ask, go ahead and throw that in the comments. Throw it in the chat. I will get to it as soon as I possibly can. I appreciate everybody so much for sticking around, talking some sports with me here on a beautiful Wednesday, January 15th. But like I was saying, we are going to get into the first topic of the show today, and that's going to be the top 8 teams remaining. In my opinion, they got the right 8 teams, right? I think these are undoubtedly the right 8 teams in the NFL. And we're going to start off at number 8, the divisional round power rankings, and that goes to the Houston Texans. I think outside of the Texans, I don't think any other team is really that close to them. The Texans, of course, have their issues offensively. We saw it in the first round of the playoffs. They don't have the most complete offense, especially on the offensive line, but the defense is amazing, right? They were able to force 4 interceptions out of Justin Herbert, and a guy that never really turns the ball over. He threw more interceptions in that playoff game than he did all regular season, right? So they have the defense and the players to be able to win some games, but the offense was really lagging behind. They're just not the same caliber of team, at least in my opinion, when it comes to offense that the rest of the teams have. They don't have that same upside to win a game in a shootout that I think every other team on this list at least has the capability of doing. And because of that, I just don't see them really being that competitive with the rest of the teams in the playoffs. They're number 8 on the power rankings. Continuing to number 7, this is where I had my first real question. I put the Commanders here, right? Their offense is amazing. Jaden Daniels has put together one of the best rookie quarterback seasons in the history of the NFL. There's no doubt about that. What he's been able to do this season, going to win Rookie of the Year, going, as we're going to talk about later in the show, arguably a top 5 quarterback in the NFL right now, has been nothing short of incredible, turning that franchise around in Washington in just one season. But when it comes to the rest of the team, it's just not there. We talked about the offensive woes for the Texans just at number 8. They have defensive woes, right? This is a team that just, both of these at number 8 and number 7 are just not as complete of a team as everybody else in the NFL right now. The Commanders, I think, have the ability to step up defensively better than the Texans have the ability to step up offensively, and because of that, I have them ranked just slightly above them. But those are the 2 teams in the playoffs right now that I think just aren't quite as complete of teams as everybody else. Everyone else there has defenses and offenses that can win games for them. Those 2 units just have not been able to get it done for this number 7 Commanders team and that number 8 Texans team. At number 6, though, we're going to go to the Rams. They are a complete team, right? They have a good defense and a good offense. But when you compare it to the rest of the teams, the top 5 teams in the NFL right now, they just aren't at that same level, right? The top 5 teams in the NFL are head, shoulders, knees above where the Rams are. Now, the Rams are a very dangerous team if you let them get hot. We've seen them get into shootouts with the Bills where they put up 40 points, weren't able to get the job done. The defense didn't step up. We saw them absolutely dominate the Vikings last time out, put up 9 sacks in that game. Great defensive plays for them. The offense puts up 27 points, and they did what they needed to do, kind of took their foot off the gas pedal at the end. They're a dangerous team if they get hot, but I just don't see them as well constructed. They're a little too young on the defensive side of the ball. The secondary concerns me just a little bit, and because of that, I don't have the Rams in the same tier as the top 5 teams in the NFL, so they sit here pretty comfortably at number 6. getting into the top five. And this is where, when we were doing our tiers for the beginning of the playoffs, these five teams were the contenders, as we put it. These were the teams that we put in the top tier contending categories. These five teams still begin up there. There's a little bit of movement and shaking based on what happened in the last round, but I'm putting the Eagles at 5. That defense is probably the best defense in the league, and on paper, they are the best team. You can go bar for bar, player for player, position for position, all the way up and down that Eagles roster, and I'd say the Eagles win every single time against any team in the NFL. They win that battle. They are just that stacked on all three layers of defense, on any position you point to on offense. They are that good. They're going to win that battle most of the time, and that's incredibly hard to do. That's great team building by Howie Roseman, the GM, and that's what's keeping them in this. Now, the reason they fall a little bit from last week, they fall out of the top 3, is because the way that Jalen Hurts played. That offense only able to put up 22 points in their first game in the playoffs. The offense just wasn't very good. Jalen Hurts had a point where he was under 100 yards passing for most of that game. It was not an efficient game for him. He wasn't able to get his wide receivers involved. He was missing his throws, and I know he missed a lot of time, Jalen Hurts did. But when Jalen Hurts is at his best, this team is incredibly scary, and they're a team that absolutely could win a Super Bowl. I have not seen that from them in recent weeks. Again, Jalen Hurts missed just about 3 weeks of concussion. He came out of concussion protocol late in the week, so that's something that you should keep in mind when we talk about this team. But the Eagles at number 5, still a real threat in the NFL, still a real contender threat, and they're not too far away from anybody else in this top 5 by any stretch of the imagination. At number 4, we're going to go with the Detroit Lions. The reason they're here at 4 as opposed to number 2 or number 1 is because they're just too injured right now. They're getting a couple guys back, right? They're getting David Montgomery back. That's going to be a huge get for their offense. They're getting a couple guys back defensively. They've got a really good unit that played really well against the Vikings and Sam Darnold last time out, but I'm just a little concerned that the injuries are going to come and bite them, especially playing against an offense as high-powered as the Commanders. I'm really curious how it's going to go. Now, I do think that the Lions will still end up taking this because the Commanders, again, their defense, they don't really have that elite run defense. They don't have a great run defense, one of the worst run defenses in all of football. But I digress. The Lions here at number 4, they're just a little bit too injured, especially defensively, for me to put all of my faith in them as we get down the stretch. But still, again, like the Eagles, top contending team. Do not take your eyes off them because they are really, really good this year. At number 3, we have the Bills. The Buffalo Bills are here are above these two teams, first of all, because they beat the Lions, right? They took them out at basically the same strength not too long ago. Josh Allen has that ability to go superhuman mode, absolutely destroy anything and everything in his path. That's something that he has the capability to do, and he's done it multiple times this year. There's no reason to believe that he won't be able to do it again as the playoffs continue. He's got a massive game this week against those Baltimore Ravens that are still up here on the list. The Bills, the reason they're not at number 1, the reason they're not at number 2, it's because their run defense is probably their biggest weakness, and they were lucky to go up against a Denver Broncos team that has little to no run game. Like, they like to try and run the ball, but their stable of running backs, their 3, 4, 5 running backs that they trot out every single game was not going to be able to get much done against a Bills team that just didn't let them stay in the game long enough to establish that run game. It's going to be a lot tougher when they go up against the Ravens, and I just don't trust that defense to be able to hold down Derrick Henry and Lamar Jackson. So they are here at number 3. At number 2, we have the Kansas City Chiefs. The Kansas City Chiefs are here at 2, and again, they're just really good, right? They had basically a month off, so I'm a little bit worried about them being a bit rusty, but as long as they're able to get out of the gates quickly, as long as they're able to continue the game that they want to play, keep the ball in their possession and not go through, all of the issues that they did, especially offensively early on in the season, like they were playing at the end of the season. They really turned it up. They were winning games by multiple scores. 3 out of their last 3 wins, obviously not including the game that they just took off. They ended the season with 3 straight wins, all by double digits. That's huge. That's something that people had rightfully pointed out they had struggled with all season long. They only did it 5 games all season, 3 of them at the end, and that is huge to see. This team is starting to pick up when you need to. The one concern is that they haven't played football in almost a month, so you got to keep an eye on that. You have to be prepared for the fact that maybe they're just not going to be the same Chiefs, but they get the draw of the Texans, and I think that's the best one out there for them. They should be able to move on to the AFC Championship game. And at number 1, that leaves just the Baltimore Ravens. They are playing, the best football in the NFL right now. That is undoubtable. There's not another team out there that is playing as good as them. Early on in the season, the Ravens defense was not at the same level that it was last year. Part of the reason why the Ravens made it to the AFC Championship game last year was because that defense was playing so well. Down the stretch here, you go and look at all the defensive numbers. They have been a top 5 unit in the NFL after they moved Kyle Hamilton back to that free safety position as opposed to in the box like he was doing before. This is something that the Ravens have been really good at, right? You get that power run game going with Derrick Henry and Lamar Jackson. You control the football, and then that defense is able to get stops. It's a deadly combo, and the Ravens have found a way to perfect it down the stretch here. They are the number 1 team in football, and I think they are Super Bowl favorites, at least in my book, the way that they're playing right now. But let me know what you think. Again, Texans 8, Commanders 7, Rams 6, Eagles 5, Lions 4, Bills 3, Chiefs 2, and Ravens at number 1. I'd love to hear your thoughts. We're going to take a quick break here. When we come back, we turn our attention to the 6 open spots on the coaching carousel. We're going to try and predict every single one as coaching interviews are starting to reach their second rounds. We'll be right back here on GSMC's Down by Contact Sports Podcast.